Hari Om. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste friends. Welcome to session 130 of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. We have completed chapter 17 and are going to enter the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But before commencing that, we will take up mantra 10 of Khanda 2 and mantras 1 to 4 from Khanda 2 of Mundaka 3 of Mundakopanishad. In today's session, Srimati Rama, Srimati Indumati, Srimati Vani, Srimati Apeksha will help us understand these mantras. Chiranjeevi Suteja is going to chant Ganesha Atharva after the class. Now, to start with, Dr. Anupama Madam will give us an introduction to today's class. Anupama, please.
Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We have now reached the concluding part of Mundaka Upanishad. The teaching started as an answer to a question asked by a student called Shaunaka. His question was, what is that fundamental cause, knowing which everything is known? His guru, Angiras, replied, Brahma Jnanena Sarva Vijnanam Bhavati. The mantras that we will study today will reveal the glory of this Brahma Jnanam indirectly by glorifying a gnani as a bhukti mukti pradata. We shall also learn about jnana sadhanani, or the means of gaining knowledge, atma varnam, the importance of tivra mumukshutvam, and associated sadhanas like intellectual strength, alertness, and the importance of vairagya sahitam jnanam. Dr. Rama will explain the first two verses for us. Over to you, madam.
Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Mantras Mundakopanishad, mantras 3.1.10 and 3.2.1. Today I will be explaining two mantras from Mundakopanishad, Mundaka 3, Khandas 1 and 2. In both the Khandas, common topics discussed are Gnana Sadhanam, Gnana Swarupam, and Gnana Phalam. Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti are mentioned as Gnana Phalam. The mantras describe the glory of that Gnanam through which a Gnani has attained self-knowledge. Gnani Mahima is Gnana Mahima. This glory is said to be twofold. One, because of Atma Jnanam, a Gnani is liberated and he teaches that knowledge to others and help them liberate from Punarjanma. The Gnani's mind is pure because of abundance of Sattva Guna essentially needed to attain Atma Jnanam. His purity of mind is because of Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampattihi or 4 Ds. Puja Swami Paramarthanandaji indicates that the 4 Ds are Vivekaha, discrimination, Vairagyam, dispassion, Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi, discipline, and Mumukshutvam, desire to be liberated. Such mastery brings with it a plenitude of psychic powers or siddhis which can instantly fulfill the desires of the worshippers. This is Gnani's second glory. Swamiji explains that a Gnani is as good as Ishvara because a Gnani has realized that he is not different than Brahman. His sattvic mind is bereft of rajas and tamas. The mantra terms him as Vishuddha Sattvaha. He has invoked God in him all the time. So worship of Ishvara and Gnani will give the same results. Being closer to Ishvara, a sattvic mind is a universal experience. A Gnani expands his consciousness beyond his ego identifies one with the infinite being or the universal self. He acquires some of the virtues of Ishvara like Satya Kamaha and Satya Sankalpaha. He accomplishes the materialistic desires to a worshipper instantly through mere Sankalpa. A gnani will not have any personal desires of his own. Any prayers made or on behalf of the desiring Sakama Bhaktas. The 10th shloka of Dakshinamurti Ashtakam says, Syadishwaratvam Swataha, meaning a self-realized person experiences the great state of being universal self, which would result in the unlimited divine power or siddhis. For example, we have heard of Bala Shankara prayed goddess Lakshmi on behalf of a poor lady with wealth, and Shirdi Sai Baba relieving sufferings of his devotees by mere sankalpa. A gnani guides a mumukshu or a nishkama bhakta through consistent and systematic teaching for a length of time. Acharya Shankara blessed his devoted disciple Giri with gnanam. The enlightened disciple Giri became Totakacharya. And Sri Ramana Maharshi did not pray that his disease would go away. Rather, he lived to guide others as a gnani. Now, with this background, let us try to understand the meaning of the mantras. In the mantra 3.1.10, a gnani is glorified as bhukti pradata, fulfilling the material desires of a sakama bhakta. And the mantra says, Yam yam lokam manasa sampibhati vishuddha sattvaha kamayate yanscha kaman tam tam lokam jayate tanscha kaman tasmadatmagnam hyarchayet bhuti kamaha. And the translation is, whatever world the man of purified mind desires, whatever objective desires he wishes to fulfill, all these he attains. Therefore, let whoever is desirous of prosperity worship the man of self-realization. Next slide shows the Anvayartha of this mantra. Yam yam lokam manasa samvibhati. Whatever lokas he wishes for. Yanscha kaman kamayate. Whatever worldly objects he desires on behalf of a sakama bhakta, tam tam lokam tanscha kaman jayate. The bhakta will be able to fulfill all those lokas and worldly desires. Bhutihi means dharma, artha, kamaha or materialistic benefits. Bhuti kamaha is a person desiring material benefits. Atmagnam hi archayet, should worship and serve a gnani by assisting him in his work and get their own worldly desires fulfilled. A gnani is worth our worship and it is our unique privilege to worship him. Thus, this mantra says that whatever world or objects we contemplate in our mind, that we shall materialize at once because of the power of Atma Jnanam. The knower of the Atman should be worshipped by people in search of prosperity and good fortune in order to earn their blessings and grace. In the mantra 3.2.1, a gnani is glorified as Mukti Pradata, fulfilling spiritual desires of a Nishkama Bhakta. And the mantra is Savedaitat Paramam Brahma Dhama Yatra Vishwam Nihitam Bhati Shubhram Upasate Purusham Yesha Kamaha Te Shukrame Tadati Vartanti Dhiraha. Translation. A gnani knows that the self-effulgent Brahman is the supreme abode of this whole universe. These sadhakas, who are discriminative and without desires, worship a gnani and transcend the seed of rebirth. Anvaya, Artha and explanation is in the next slide. The Saveda Etat Paramam Brahma. A gnani has the knowledge of the Sachit aspect of Brahman. In the mantra Paramam Dhama, means Brahman is the supreme abode of this universe to manifest. It refers to the Sat aspect of Brahman. Shubhram means pure. Brahman is not affected by the good or evil of this universe, which it supports. Bhati means it is self-effulgent. It refers to the Chit aspect of Brahman. Yatra Vishwam Nihitam. So in the Sat Chit Brahman alone, this universe manifests. Ye akamaha, those desirous of only moksha or nishkama upasakas, purusham upasate, devoted to such a gnani, worship him as non-different from Parameshwara. Te dhiraha, such devotees with nitya anitya vastu vivekaha, etat shukram ativartante, transcend the seed state of existence or cause of their rebirth. The sanchita karmas of a Jivan Muktha is compared to a burnt seed. A burnt seed cannot germinate, though it may look like a normal seed. Thus, a gnani transcends shukram, the material cause of rebirth, and therefore people worship gnanis. Conducting worship of a gnani for liberation is much better than worshipping a gnani for the material benefits which causes rebirth. Now the question is, what happens to the gnani's karma phalas? All his karmas naturally result in punyas and papas as karma phalam. Since the gnani is liberated, all his punya will be shared by kind-hearted supporters of his activities. And those who try to obstruct him in his work incur papas of such obstruction on a scale beyond their own imagination. It is needless to say that such benevolence extends to all the 14 lokas mentioned in the verse as tam tam lokam, meaning that the punyas are beneficial in the higher as well as lower worlds. Everyone benefits from a gnani's deeds. As a final remark, Swamiji says that the gnani is God on the go. The next mantra answers the question, how can knowledge protect one from rebirth? Hari Om. Thank you. Hari Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
Thank you, madam. We have just heard mantra 10 of the third Mundaka, first Kanda. Here, as we have just heard, madam say, the gnani is glorified as a bhukti pradata, possessing virtues of Ishvara like Satyakama, Satya Sankalpa, etc., which enable him to bless devotees with their material desires. Having a Vishuddha Sattvaha, that means a Nirmala Antakarana, that is being a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, Ishvara Pratibimba is optimal in him. He is a manifestation of Ishvara. That is why we say, Guruhu Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. He fulfills the Arthakama Dharma desires by mere sankalpa. Yam yam lokam manasa kamayate, tam tam lokam jayate. In the first mantra of the third Mundaka, second Kanda, this same gnani is described as a mukti pradhata. Now, who is this gnani? Saha etad paramam brahma ved. He knows Brahman as himself. How? Aparokshataya. As aham brahma asmi. As the infinite substratum, the untainted abode of the universe. For a mumukshu devotee with mukti kama, this gnani becomes a Brahma Guru, Brahma Vidya Guru. And with this jnanam that he imparts, te etad shukram ati vartante. The devotees transcend punarjanma. Now, next, Madam Indumati will explain the second mantra. Over to you, Madam.
Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Kamanya kamayate manyamanaha sat kamabhir jayate tatra tatra paryapta kamasya krutatmanastu ihaiva sarve praviliyanti kamaha. The last section of the Upanishad begins with the glorification of the gnani. A gnani is capable of blessing the seekers with both material end and spiritual end. He is bhukti mukti pradata. Whether he gives material end or spiritual end depends upon the seeker. In the first mantra, it is said that the gnani blesses with moksha for the seekers who are not interested in any other things of life. Te shukrametat ativartanti dhiraha. Just as he is a gnani, he makes his disciples also gnanis. Just as Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya was a guru and Sureshwaracharya is the shishya. When people looked at them together, they wondered who was the guru and who was the shishya. Thus, the guru releases the shishya from rebirth. The question that arises now is that how can knowledge protect a person from rebirth? The answer is given in the second mantra. It points out that rebirth is determined by the intense yearning of a person. Karma is responsible for the journey of Jivatma, not only after death, but while living also. Karma is backed by karma, movement is backed by karma, extending that rebirth is also decided by karma only. In case of the gnani, he is totally fulfilled. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atmanyeva atmana tushtaha. He drops the desires not as a suppression, but desires get dropped because the gnani is so full. Kamanyat kamayate, intense yearning, and dhyayato vishayan pumsaha, obsession for material objects, make us feel we are incomplete without these objects. Then it becomes saha tatra tatra jayate. Such a person will be born in such circumstances where the desire can be fulfilled. Kamabihi, he is born with a new body, unknowingly with the desire of the previous janma. Tatratam buddhi samyogam labhate paurvadehikam. He gets the desire of the previous janma. Similarly, a special inclination for spirituality. Sakamabihi, with those desires, materialistic or spiritual. Sa tatra tatra jayate, he goes towards that end. Here, the rule is, as is the desire, so is the gnana. Manyamanaha, a desire at the time of death, will be the cumulative effect of the type of life he has led earlier. Sri Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha. Only if you have thoughts and noble ambitions throughout, then only, even at the end, you can have such a desire. Tatra tatra jayate. But for a gnani, who is called a krutatma, one who has fulfilled himself, paramatmatvena kritaha, converted into paramatma. How? Gnanena kritaha, by knowledge. So he is atmanyeva atmana tushtaha. Paryapta kamasya, all the desires are as good as fulfilled. Paryapta kamaha, in Taittiriya, it is said, Saha ashnute sarvan kaman saha. He has fulfilled all his desires in life by knowledge. Therefore, sarve kamaha praviliyanti. all the desires will dissolve here itself, and thereafterwards, if at all he has desires, they are not for fulfillment, they are all out of fulfillment. Emptiness-backed desires are called binding desires. Gnani has only non-binding desires, and that is called Muktihi. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. In this very significant mantra 2, the Upanishad says that those with bhukti kamaha or materialistic desires will be reborn along with the same desire in a congenial environment to fulfill them. Sadly, this desire for anatma is based on avidya or ajnanam, meaning self-ignorance, which manifests as a very deep and erroneous sense of apurnatvam or incompleteness. This karma or desire drives one to acquire more and more by performing various types of karmas. So we have seen avidya or ajnana, that is ignorance, is the cause of karma or desire. This karma leads to karma, and the consequence of this karma we know is punya papa. This punya papa is the genesis of punarjanma. Therefore, the root cause of punarjanma is ajnanam or self-ignorance. Saha yaha kamayate kaman manyamanaha. Manyamana means repeatedly. Jayate tatra tatra kamabihi. In contrast, for a gnani, sarva kamaha iha eva praviliyante. As Krishna said, prajahati yata kaman sarvan partha manogatan. He becomes atmani eva atmana tushta, described here as kritatma. Shankaracharya says, a kritatma is one whose jivatma has been taken out of his inferior status, apara rupat, by atma jnana and brought to its original superior status, svena parena rupena kritaha. That is, jivatma now becomes brahmatma. Proceeding, Miss Vani Bhaskar will help us understand mantra 3. Over to you, madam.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This is the third mantra. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha namedayana bahuna shrutena eme vaisha vrunute tena labhyaha tasyesha atma vivrunute tanum swam. So the previous two speakers, they talked about the glorification of gnani. So in the first two verses, the glorification of gnani is discussed. And in this third mantra, we have the sadhanas or the disciplines required for the sadhana, for a spiritual seeker is discussed. To reach the goal, sadhyam, the means is very important. The sadhana is very important. In our scriptures, many sadhanas are discussed. We have sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, that is viveka, vairagya, shamadhi shat sampatti, shama, dama, uparama, titiksha, shraddha and samadhana, and mumukshatvam. All the sadhanas are important. But here the teacher says mumukshatvam is the most important. And in mumukshatvam, we should have that intense desire for moksha, that is tivra mumukshatvam. So that desire is very, very important. Swamiji here gives a very good example. If your head is immersed in water, what is your thoughts going on in your mind? You really don't have anything other than you just want to come out of the water and breathe. So the same way, similarly, the desire for moksha must be so intense and strong that nothing should bother you other than moksha. The first line says, I am Atma pravachanena labhyaha. Here Atma means Paramatma. Pravachanena is scriptural studies. To attain this Paramatma, mere studying the Vedas and scriptures extensively does not help us. By mere studying, it gives us academic knowledge, no doubt, which is of no use. Only our ego becomes stronger and spiritual ego is developed. So the teacher here says the study of the scriptures must be backed by Tivra Mumukshatvam. Na Medaya, na Bahuna Shrutina. Meda Shakti is Grantartha Dharana Shakti. Just by memorizing the text, we cannot obtain Paramatma. Bahuna Shrutena, repeated Shravanam. So mere by listening to the scriptures under the guidance of a guru does not lead us into our goal, that is Paramatma. Here we have to understand the teacher is not criticizing the study of the scriptures, nor the memorization of the scriptures, nor the Shravanam. All of them are very, very important, but all these must be backed by the desire for intense moksha, that is Tivra Mumukshatvam. We have to get the full, only then we get the full benefit. So here Tivra Mumukshatvam is called Atma Varanam. Yame Vaisha Brunute Tena Labhya. The seeker attains this Paramatma only by choosing Paramatma as the highest and ultimate goal. We all know we have 4 Purusharthas, that is Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. Dharma, Artha, Kama are the means, not an end. But Moksha is the only end. That is the Paramatma or Gnanam is the primary and ultimate goal of life. Therefore, choice is very, very important. Swami Dayananda calls it as Purushartha Nishchaya. So choose Paramatma as the highest goal of life. Tena eva labhyaha. To him alone, Atma can be obtained. Moksha is in our hands only. It is not determined by God, nor planetary positions, or nor numerology. Moksha is a result of free will, not fate. Tasyesha Atma Vivrunute Tanum Swam. Vivrunute means it reveals itself. Tanum is Swarupam. So what is the Swarupam of Atma? That is Satchidananda Swarupam. So Paramatma reveals its nature, that is Satchidananda Swarupam, to a sincere seeker. So who is the sincere seeker? Who has chosen Paramatma as the top priority in his life. So when the knowledge dawns, the self becomes revealed. So likewise, in the presence of light, the objects are revealed. So the desire for moksha must be so intense, that is Tivra Mumukshatvam is the most important for Paramatma to be revealed. So for example, if a Carnatic music kacheri is going on, the tamburi shruti will be going on, whatever the singer is singing. Same way that as the shruti goes on, here also the Tivra Mokshatvam, it should be back of our mind. So whatever sadhanas we do, we have to have that Tivra Mumukshatvam to attain that Paramatma. Hari Om.
Thank you, madam. That was such a nice explanation. I really have nothing more to say. Anything I say would be only repetitive, yet I will say this. Mantras 3 and 4 describe sadhanas for spiritual success. As you have just said, remember, all the while, moksha should be the only priority in life. And this Tivra Mumukshutvam should be as intense as a choked person desiring a breath of fresh air. And such a intense desire is here called Atma Varanam, and it is mandatory for Atma Jnanam, which cannot be attained by mere pravachana, that is academic study of scriptures, medhaya, by memorizing, or repeated shravanam. Proceeding, we have Apeksha, who will explain the concluding mantra for us. Over to you.
Hari Om. Naim Atma Balhinen Labhya Nacha Pramadat Tapso Vapya Lingat. Etai Rupayar Yatate Yastu Vidvan Tasyesh Atma Vishate Brahmadama. Now in the mantra 4, here it is explained the 4 qualifications. Without these 4 qualifications, moksha cannot be attained. So a double negative language is being used here. This verse says, this Atman cannot be attained by one devoid of strength, or by absence of excitement, or by tapas devoid of linga. But of the knower who strives with these aids, the Atman enter into the Brahman. Next slide, please. So to break it into very easy, simple language, this verse is about the 4 important qualifications, the most important qualifications that are, or sadhana, that is required for moksha. First is balam, second is apramadaha, third is tapaha, fourth is lingam. So let's look at the meaning of each of these qualifications one by one. Next slide, please. Balam means strength,
Now, when we talk about strength, it is physical strength is required, but here what is most important is the internal or spiritual strength, which is very necessary. And one can only have balam through sadhana chatushtaya sampati. We have talked about sadhana chatushtaya sampati so many times, but here I have written down what it means. It talks about four important very quality. First is viveka, the power of discrimination. Second is vairagya, dispassion. Then Shat Sampat, that is six virtues that everyone should have. The first one is of Shama, that is calmness. Dama, self-control. Uparati, withdrawal. Titiksha, forbearance or endurance. Shraddha, unwavering faith. Samadhana, intense focus or single-pointed concentration. And D, the fourth one is mumukshutva, which we talked in the previous verse also, the burning desire to attain moksha. Through sadhana chatushtaya sampati, through these four powers that we should have, one can attain balam, which is the internal or spiritual strength that we are talking about. Now we have looked at balam, so let's look at the second qualification. Next slide, please. Next slide. Apramada. Apramada. So apramada means focus or commitment or sincerity. So pramadaha basically means negligent, one who is negligent or one who is having very casual approach towards attaining moksha. It cannot work. If you make Vedanta into a time pass, this approach will never ever lead you towards moksha. So you have to be, one has to be very focused, very committed and sincere. That's what we talked about mumukshutva also, tivra mumukshutva feeling one should have, where one wants to be committed towards attaining moksha. Tapas is the third qualification, which basically means knowledge or jnanam. That is the essential quality of, that is the essential sadhana. One should have knowledge, but knowledge without lingam will be incomplete. Lingam is the fourth qualification that we talk about. And here lingam, Shankaracharya refers to sannyasa. Lingam basically means the mark or identity of a person who is committed to jnanam. So sannyasa is what here it is being referred to. But as soon as we talk about sannyasa, we feel, what should we, leave everything and just go and study scriptures and gain knowledge? No, that is not what is talked about here. Next slide, please. Sannyasa is of two types. External, it is completely optional. You can renounce this world and go to Himalayas and study knowledge. That is up to you. But what the sannyasa that is being talked about here is the internal sannyasa. That is the one that matters. So when we talk about internal sannyasa, what does that mean? It means renunciation of ahamkara, that is ego, mamakara, that means mind, raga, and dvesha. These are the four things that we have to, if we can renounce it, if we can, just leave it away, then we can have internal sannyasa. What does that mean? That whenever the ownership and controllership idea comes, typically we think we are the doer, we are doing everything, this is mine, this is my like, this is my dislike, all these things, ideas that when it comes into our mind, we have to understand we are not the doers. It is everything belongs to Bhagwana only. He is the one who is controlling everything. We do everything by thinking with this thought that we are dedicating it to Lord, and whatever we are receiving, we receive it as a prasad from the Bhagwan. So what does internal sannyasa means? Swamiji talks about a very beautiful line here. It means when one's mind is prepared to lose the losable, then one is internal sannyasi. So what does it mean to lose the losable? This body, this mind, everything is temporary. We are in this world for a very fixed period of time. Bhagwan will never give us notice also. We can leave this body at any moment of time. So everything is just temporary. So internal sannyasa is very important. So your mind should be prepared to lose the losable. Next slide, please. So without these four qualifications, that is balam, strength, apramada, that is focus and commitment, tapa means knowledge, lingam means sannyasa, internal sannyasa, one cannot get moksha in this life. So just to summarize, next slide, please. This Atman cannot be attained by one devoid of strength, balam, or by absence of excitement, or by tapas or knowledge devoid of linga. But of the knower who strives with these aids, the Atman enters into the Brahman. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Apeksha. We have just heard this 4 mantra, which gave us the 4 supportive sadhanas for a mumukshu, a spiritual seeker. So, as we have heard, they are balam or buddhi balam, the internal strength, apramada or alertness. We should not let our life pass by mechanically. Tapaha in this context means jnanam, and linga, as Apeksha said, means vairagyam. Thank you very much. With this, we conclude today's session on Mundakopanishad. Today, little Suteja will be chanting Ganesha Atharva Shirsha for us. Over to you, Suteja, please.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Om Bhadram Karne Vishnuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashye Makshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Stushtuagum Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vridhashavaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspati Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi Om Namaste Ganapataye Tvameva Pratyaksham Tattvamasi Tvameva Kevalam Kartasi Tvameva Kevalam Dhartasi Tvameva Kevalam Hartasi Tvameva Sarvam Khalvidam Brahmasi Tvam Sakshadatmasi Nityam Ritam Vachmi Satyam Vachmi Avatvamam Avabhaktaram Avashrotaram Avadataram Avadhataram Avanuchadam Avashishyam Avapashchatat Avapurastat Avottaratat Avadakshinataat Avachordhvatat Avadharatat Sarvato Mam Pahi Pahi Samantat Tvam Vangmayastvam Chinmayaha Tvam Anandamayastvam Brahmamayaha Tvam Satchidananda Dvitiyosi Tvam Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvam Jnanamayo Vijnanamayosi Sarvam Jagaridam Tvatto Jayate Sarvam Jagaridam Tvattastishtati Sarvam Jagaridam Tvayi Layameshyati Sarvam Jagaridam Tvayi Pratyeti Tvam Bhumirapo Nalo Nilo Nabha Tvam Chatvari Vakpadani Tvam Gunatrayatitaha Tvamavastatrayatitaha Tvam Dehatrayatitaha Tvam Kalatrayatitaha Tvam Mooladharastitosi Nityam Tvam Shaktitrayatmakaha Tvam Yogino Dhyayanti Nityam Tvam Brahma Tvam Vishnustvam Rudras-tvam Indras-tvam Agnis-tvam Vayustvam Suryastvam Chandramastam Brahma Bhurvassuvarom Ganadiim Purvamucharyam Varnadiim Tadadantaram Anuswarah Parataraha Ardhendulasitam Tarena Riddham Etattava Manaswarupam Gakarah Purvarupam Akaro Madhyama Rupam Anuswarascha Rupam Binduruttara Rupam Nadasandhanam Sagumhita Sandhihi Saisha Ganesha Vidya Ganaka Rishihi Nichrit Gayatri Chandaha Ganapatir Devata Om Ganganapataye Namaha Om Ganganapataye Namaha Om Ganganapataye Namaha एकदन्ताय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्तिः प्रचोदयात् एकदन्तं चतुर्हस्तं पाशमङ्कुशधारिणं हृदं च वरदं हस्तैर्बिभ्राणं मूषकध्वजं रक्तं लम्बोदरं शूर्पकर्णकं रक्तवाससं रक्तगन्धानुलिप्ताङ्गं रक्तपुष्पैः सुपूजितं भक्तानुकम्पिनं देवं जगत्कारणमच्युतम् आविर्भूतं च शुष्पादौ प्रकृतैः पुरुषात् परम् एवं ध्यायति यो नित्यं स योगी योगिनां वरः नमो व्रातपतये नमो गणपतये नमः प्रमदपतये नमस्तेऽस्तु लम्बोदराय एकदन्ताय विघ्नविनाशिने शिवसुताय श्रीवरदमूर्तये नमः य एवं वेद इत्युपनिषत् ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्ट्वागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ
Thank you, Suteja, for your flawless chanting of this Ganapati Atharva Shirsha. Friends, Suteja is 14-year-old studying in 9th standard in BGS NPS school in Banerghatta Road. Thank you all speakers for a wonderful class. Thanks, Dr. Anupama Madam, for your insightful introduction. Thank you all for your active participation. On Monday, 16 January 2023, let us log in for a new session 43 of Disha for the discovery of inner strength and happiness at 6:45 p.m. In this episode of Disha, we will continue study of 9th chapter along with Tattva Bodha. With this, let us conclude today's session with our usual Shanti mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.